and welcome. Storyboard is at the Cannes Lions Festival, and I'm now going to be talking to Mark Pritchard. He is the Chief Marketing and Brand Building Officer for Procter & Gamble, the largest consumer goods company in the world, with revenues of $79 billion for the year ended in June 2010, and also by far the largest advertiser in the world. Mark Pritchard, P&G continues to endorse Cannes almost for a decade now. Are you saying the law of diminishing marginal returns hasn't set in for P&G and Cannes?
Actually, absolutely. We've been doing this for about a decade, and as you said, and we actually get more out of this every year. In fact, this is a great year for us. This is the year that we have our best ever performance. This is the creative epicenter of the world. This is where all of the great creative minds in the marketing world come together, and that's why we come here, and we get inspired every time, and we always find something new.
What is on your agenda where agencies are concerned, and the brief for the marketing function and what they're expected to deliver?
2011, it is about big ideas, and it's big ideas that invite participation, get people involved, get people to actually work together with our brands as well as advocate for others. Probably the best example of that I can give you is what we're being awarded for quite a bit is Old Spice.
Yeah.
Last year was the Film Grand Prix, this year the Cyber Grand Prix, and we're up for a Creative Effectiveness and others tonight. So, that's a great example of the kind of big ideas that we want. It's rooted in Old Spice's very interesting purpose, which is to help guys navigate the seas of manhood. It's also a great benefit, which is you smell like a man, but then it's done in such an engaging way where Isaiah Mustafa, the Old Spice guy, says, "Look at your man, now back at me, and so forth." And then we've actually taken it to digital. So we have 186 Twitter responses that he did, so people got involved. And that's really when you really see it, a big idea that gets people involved and advocate on your own behalf is the kind of thing that we're looking for.
So it's incredible the momentum that Old Spice has kept at over a couple of years now in terms of its advertising. Take us through what this has done for the brand and where it was and where it is today as a direct result of advertising. Are you crediting the success completely and only to advertising?
There's other things. We've launched a few new products, but the primary driver of this has been the idea. And this is a brand that, think about it, the name was Old Spice. Yeah. It was a 70-year-old brand. Yeah. How many times do you think you'd ever name a brand, put old in it? Well, it was looking old. And what happened then is we said we really need to refresh this brand. We gave the agency a big challenge that said refresh it, make it modern, make it cool again. And as I said, the purpose drove this insight. The insight is an interesting insight, okay? Guys, they want to be manly. But deep down, while we'll never admit it, we're all a little bit afraid we may not be manly enough. So when the Old Spice guy says, "Look at your man, now back at me, now back at your man, now back at me," sadly, he isn't me. You've now made a direct affront on my masculinity. But then he comes back and says, "But at least if he used Old Spice, he could smell like me and not use that lady-scented body wash." So from there, putting that into really part of the popular culture, because Isaiah went to all of the talk shows. He was on Ellen, he was on Oprah. We then got it into the Twitter sphere, and he answered questions from many celebrities, like Ellen, like Alyssa Milano, like George Stephanopoulos. Became part of the fabric of culture, and it turned the brand around. The brand it was up 25% in the first 6 months. It catapulted 2 market share points, and it's number 1.
Companies like yours have spent the better part of the past 10 years investing in trying and understanding digital technology and how it's completely changing the way we behave and way we consume and make purchase decisions. Over the past couple of years, all the internet giants are recording huge increases in growth in display advertising.
Sure.
And one of their concerns was marketers like you didn't see the medium as a brand building platform. Has that changed?
Completely changed. We made a decision 3 years ago that we were going to win in digital, and we were going to take our brands digital, mostly because, well, not mostly because that's where consumers are going. So we have invested in search, display media, social media, and now mobile. And we've seen a pretty big transformation within our company. Display media is one form, so I can see their point. But what I'm seeing now emerge is a lot more video. And I am actually very much looking forward to seeing our technology partners have much greater video capability. Because what that does is allows us to do things like an Old Spice, where you can have a Twitter question and a YouTube answer, and then a Facebook connection. And then it also allows people to play.
So clearly you're seeing the digital platform now as something that contributes to brand building directly.
Completely. It absolutely does. In fact, we see TV effectiveness rise when we add it with digital.
Right.
So it is a very much a component of brand building. And the other good thing is that increasingly you go from building brand equity with digital and then actually purchase. Because we've all got on all of our websites now, and as many touch points as possible, we have a little button that says buy it now, and then you can go to an e-commerce site.
Almost all the companies, especially all the key companies in this sector, are using the sustainability plank for their corporate brand and leveraging it further for their product brands. What I'm confused about is how does this help you as a marketer to create any differentiation? Because you're saying it, Unilever is saying it, Nestle is beginning to see it. In India, for example, Nestle India suddenly realized that their products are better known than their corporate brand, and they're actually going out. I mean, on my show, the Nestle India chairman articulated this plan. So my question to you is, if everybody is doing this, then as a marketer, where does the differentiation come in?
Well, where the differentiation comes in is just like any brand, is that you really have to, what we have to make sure that the consumers that we serve understand is what we're about and why, and demonstration of what we're actually doing. So for example, within P&G, what we're focused on is innovation. We innovate to make everyday life better. And then the manifestation of that is all of our brands and how they're making things better. And then in terms of sustainability, from a social sustainability standpoint, it has to be true demonstration of how you do things, like what we do with Shiksha schools, like what we're doing with Special Olympics, like what we're doing with clean, safe drinking water. When it comes to environmental, you have to demonstrate. And just like any competition, we have to make sure that people understand exactly what makes us different.
But do you really think that consumers care so much in today's day and age about how good the company whose products they're buying are? How important is that in the purchase decision?
It's surprisingly important.
Interesting.
Because I think it reflects them. What it really does is it reflects where people's heads are at in terms of what they're looking for. You know, trust in large institutions has generally been shattered over the years. The behavior of some have then driven that. So people now are a lot more discerning. The fact that you have 24/7 real-time connections and you can understand anything about anybody, the expectation of transparency is so high that they now want to know, okay, is Gillette, who belongs, or where does Gillette belong to? What does Pantene belong? Oh, it's P&G. Let me find out about P&G. What are they doing to make the world better?
So it's the same digital technology that's also empowering people, in terms of the
I think what digital has done is it has accelerated this level of transparency and this expectation of understanding more of who's behind the company or who's behind the brands.
I want to pull out a bit and talk about the global scenario. We are meeting at a time when Europe and the rest of the world, the world is looking at Europe. Europe is looking at Greece to see how they cope going forward. Libya is at war with the rest of the world, or with NATO at least, and you have Syria and other countries which are seeing violent anti-government protests. You have agri-commodity prices at an all-time high. On the other hand, people are talking about a food crisis going forward that the world is staring at. What are the pressures this puts on a marketer?
Well, I think it comes back to, with the volatility, with the uncertainty, and a lot of the complexity and ambiguity, or what some would call a VUCA world, that provides not only some challenges, but it also provides a lot of opportunities. So back to what we were talking about, it really is incumbent upon companies to step up and really focus on how we can improve people's lives. So we're going to stay the course in terms of focusing on making everyday life better. And so we will continue to introduce into new markets to be able to improve not only our own business, but actually they do improve the economies as well. The second thing, though, is that it will create challenges, particularly from a cost standpoint. I mean, you know, one of the things that has definitely been very obvious has been the commodities. But what that does is it just puts pressure on us, and I think the right kind of pressure, to make sure that everything we do is more effective.
What about the investment that you make on marketing? Does that get affected in percentage terms, if not in absolute terms?
Well, you know, we tend to stay pretty consistent in terms of our percentage of sales. I won't give you the exact number, but our percentage of sales. So as we grow, we continue to invest. So there's really, for our company, going to be no shortage of investment that we make. But what I will say is that it does have us continue to get sharper in terms of return on investment. It's actually one of the reasons why there's more investment in the digital world, because it tends to be able to, it's not only a great way to be able to build engagement, but it also tends to be more efficient because you can target it more effectively. So we will continue to keep looking for different ways to be able to reach people. But there's other ways, you know, that you can also be more efficient and effective. We go door to door in places like India. So we do a lot of great door-to-door activity in the neighborhoods. We use it as an opportunity to say, we'll not only talk to you about Ariel, we'll talk to you about Duracell. We'll talk to you about Gillette and those kinds of things.
So you're saying that the global situation doesn't really slow down either innovation or launches across the world for P&G, and therefore the the investment in marketing.
We will always have a healthy investment in marketing. We'll continue to have a healthy. You'll see fluctuations year on year. That always happens, and you typically have to tighten up when you have tough years, but.
So will this
the
be a tough
reason
year?
why we continue to be successful, the reason why P&G continues to be successful, is because we keep innovating and we keep investing in the right things. So we will continue. In fact, the best way to deal with any kind of economic uncertainty or an economic environment is innovate. So we will continue to do that.
Mark Pritchard, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for talking to CNBC.
Okay, it's great.
You.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank
you. Bye-bye.